G'day folks, welcome to the Jeza podcast. Interesting time in the world. By the time this podcast comes out, it'll be a different time in the world. But it's amazing, the world stage is getting more chaotic. And it's interesting, you've got supposed leaders pushing buttons, real and also emotional buttons of people. And it's funny because I really don't see that they're running the show. But I think one of the traps is that people get caught up with the personality, and it really does fuel division with people, and it fuels angst. And on the last episode, I think I talked about this thing about your spiritual antenna. And so what it kind of does is really tunes your spiritual antenna into the chaos. And it's quite deliberate. The other thing I'd say that it does is, what's happening at the moment is there's people are getting shown just how corrupted almost every institution is. Politics, media, religion, medicine. It's been thrown in our face, and people are having to deal with the fact that, wow, everything you thought is dissolving. So this is only really a problem if you outsource your power. I mean, obviously, it's not a small thing, but if you outsource your power to these things, institutions, you put all your faith in it, then it's a much bigger issue. If you don't expect anything from these institutions, then it matters less. But I'm just aware, and as I said, I don't know if this will still be happening when this thing plays out. It's interesting, the camera's got its own little thing at the moment. I don't know if this thing will be playing out when this episode comes out. It probably will. For a long time, they've been basically trying to trigger people, divide people, get people emotionally activated and get people really arguing with each other. And people are really it's like rats in a box or something. They're shaking the box. So I don't want to talk about this anymore, other than to say that what I'm saying is not that sort of, it's pretty obvious what I'm saying. And people know it, but it's still very easy to get dragged into it, because when there's emotions being thrown around, sometimes you can be on the receiving end. And I kind of mentioned this last week, where I just noticed, sort of certain groupthink would sort of end up throwing a lot of emotion in a certain way. But what I wanted to talk about today was really just some simple stuff, which is kind of stuff I've already talked about, which is just being aware that this drama people are shown is intentional, and it is there to throw you off. It is there to sort of, to disempower you, and showing you how corrupted different organisations is there to get you to fragment and lose hope. But so the question is, what can we do with this? And so the more time, and a lot of what I'm going to say is obvious, but the reason I'm saying is because this drama, because I've seen this drama just accelerate more and more, and people talk about it more and more. And I mean, the first thing is really just have some time away from it. Now, it's an obvious thing, but it's just in practice. Do we do this? I know myself, often no, But one of the things I've started to try to do the last month or so, I've started to try to kind of walk my talk a little bit. And one of the things that's really helped me, and I've talked about this a little bit, is have very, 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 cultivate really easy rituals that I know I can achieve and sort of tick off each day. So I naturally walk. So these are only rituals that are not part of my normal life. So I always walk. So I don't need to cultivate that because I love it and I do it anyway. But you know, a couple other little things I've started doing, and I'm not going to talk about this a lot until this is really automated, and then I'll come back to it. But something I've started doing, and I'm about up to day 8 or 9, and I mentioned this, maybe a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember, but basically I've done it every day since then, and all it is just me doing one strength exercise a day. And yesterday I had some drinks, and even in that situation I still went and did, you know, some very basic just wall squats, but just something where I could say, okay, I've done it and I've stuck to my agreement. And as I said, I'll talk more about this, you know, in 30 days when I can actually see, okay, what are the changes, like what are my takeaways away from it? Because really what this is about for me is digging myself out of a bit of a hole where I've been a little bit lost the last couple of years, and seeing what little things I can bring about, you know, to get the movement better again, rather than stopping and start this, start that, you know, doing something really small but sticking to it. That's kind of been my goal. And the last 2 days I've done something else really, really simple. All I do, and again I've sort of talked about this in part, I've just made the decision that every day I'm going to create some space and stillness. And so what I've done is that now, regularly on the walks, I turn off my phone and I just breathe and I look and I just stay with the experience. And so far today I've done that about 20 minutes. And what I found is that when I meditated, I felt peace. And I got these lovely colours in my meditation, and I felt peace. I actually felt more peace. And all that was from turning off my phone and just staying with my breath and just staying with this experience, rather than chatting to people on the phone or, you know, listening to music or whatever. Just stayed with that. And it's very, very subtle, but it's definitely noticeable. And so, you know, I'm going to stick to these things for about 30 days and then I'll talk more about it. So I'm not going to talk about it too much because I've only just started some of these things. But I guess there's so much chaos in the world at the moment. There's a lot of aggro. And as I said, by the time this comes out, I don't know where things will be. But they are doing this to take you off track. Because if the people are divided and they're yelling about different supposed leaders who aren't, they're just taking instructions, then, you know, like it disempowers people. And spiritually, their antenna starts to go to the thing they don't want. And that's part of the design. And so, you know, this is not something to be triggered about, and this is not something to, you know, start saying, oh, that's black pill, it's nothing to do with it. It is what it is. And Blind Freddy, well, actually it's not true, but it's self-evident when you look at it, that's what's happening. But you can make a choice. Okay, this is happening. You know, you don't agree with it, blah, blah, blah. Well, what can I do about it, you know? And so the first step is, if you're sort of being triggered by it, if you've been drawn into it, it's definitely time to create some space. Almost everybody in the world at the moment is almost like hypnotized by their phone. So, you know, I travel a fair bit, And it's amazing, like every coffee shop I go by, everybody's just got their phone like this. Like it's incredible. Like it's just every single person in the shop, they just be completely in their phone. You can have a couple, both people completely. You know, I think I might have said this, but if you saw this 20 years ago, you would think, what the hell has gone right? Like you'd think, what's happened? Everyone's become zombies. But now it's just become so normal. And that phone, like you were getting a scripted view of reality. Like you're getting a version of reality that's been delivered to you. It's not necessarily the version of reality that's going to be helpful for you. You know, somebody could say it's true, but I mean, look at this beautiful forest. This is true as well. And so it's a version of reality that you wouldn't necessarily choose if you actually understood the consequences of just being with that version 24/7. And so, again, this is just, people can do what they want, but this is really just more of an invitation to, you know, so I deliberately release these podcasts weekly because I want to give people a chance to try stuff if they want. And when you try things, like you need a bit of time to work it through. You can't, this is not just a one day thing. So this is sort of like, so having a week gives time to get a sense of the thing that I'm talking about. You know, so you try it again. And then you start to, you know, by about third or fourth day, you start to notice, oh, actually I feel something. Something feels different. So this is kind of why I sort of do it weekly, because I don't want to overload people. You know, realistically, if I release this podcast every day, maybe I'd get better numbers, but it's a waste of time because each concept I really don't want. I don't want people doing a new concept every day. Even weekly is a lot, but that gives some sort of sense of momentum. So it gives people time to try something for a period of time to kind of feel like, see if it works. And, you know, not everything's going to work. These are just things to experiment with, you know, if you feel like you're, you know, it clicks. So when I'm speaking, if you feel like that resonates, then you can try it, you know. So anyway, so let's just do the piece, you know, so the mindfulness now. Let's do our view of the trees. And so let's just create a bit of space now, and again, just notice how you feel when I do this. And you should notice something in, you know, a few minutes. So just breathe in, and just all we're going to do is we're going to bring our attention into our physical situation instead of our thoughts. So do you notice how half your attention, at least most of the day, if not all the day, is like in our thoughts? Even when we're doing other stuff, we're always in our thoughts. And so right now, we're just going to withdraw a little bit of attention from our thoughts and take our attention into this moment. So take a deep breath in and just notice your body. And notice how good it feels to just be still with your thoughts. Isn't that incredible how good that feels? And notice your body actually, even though you might notice your body, you know, has a certain degree of, it might have a certain degree of alarm in it or emotion in it. But notice how just allowing it to be there, the emotion stops knocking on the door. It's there, but it's sort of, the acceleration of it suddenly stops. And so just thank your body. Thank you for showing me how you feel. And even if that feels weird, just try it anyway. Thank you for showing me how you feel. And as soon as you do that, instead of it being a war with your body, now it's more of an alliance. Now it's more of a team. Now there's suddenly more compassion there instead of making it wrong. Because if the body was like a little child, if it feels a certain way, it doesn't want to be made wrong. If you saw the body as a child, you would never be so mean to it, would you? So again, thank you for showing me how you feel. And notice again, the mind is quieter. Within a couple of minutes, the mind is quieter. So at any time throughout your day, you can cultivate this sense of quiet. Is there anything you want to show me, body? Now, as soon as I ask that question, I notice this, many people notice there's an answer. Not every time, but often there's an answer. What is it you want to show me? What could I do instead? So when I asked that question right then, what I got was drop the criticism, drop the self-criticism. And then for a remedy I got acknowledge. Because acknowledging is the antithesis. Acknowledging is acknowledging effort and intent instead of always outcomes. You can't, if you're playing a sport and you're trying to get a perfect outcome, like hit the ball perfectly, you're trying to get it perfect, you won't hit it perfect. If you're just trying to hit that ball for the joy and the fun of it, you'll actually hit it better. So you can practice with something, but practicing with joy and fun and a sense of progress. Rather, as soon as there's this have to be perfect, it creates tension and pain. And it's really coming from a wound. So any time in your day, you can just close your eyes, feel your body, and just ask it, what would you like to show me? What would you like me to feel? What would you like me to notice? How can I support you better today? And straight away, this will create more sense of coherence in you, more sense of harmony. When you're out and about in traffic and someone does something rude, a lot of the time what's happening is your body is already feeling out of whack before that moment. And all that's happened is it's come out and expressed itself from what it already felt. And the less you're bothered by other things, then that's really a reflection that you've been listening to yourself, so you're in tune with you. The thing is, everybody has emotions. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's allowing to be as it is, allowing it to be expressed, allowing it to be felt, and really not going to trying to control it. You know, if you see an animal doesn't hold on to resentment. An animal might feel an emotion in the moment, but then it won't keep a story going. Or a child might feel it in the moment. Sometimes the body remembers stuff, of course, But in general, it'll let it go more. But allowing it to be felt in the first place and allowing it to be heard means it's emotion in motion. I heard someone else say that the other day, so I thought it's not bad. So when emotion is in motion, it doesn't get locked and trapped in the body, because we're all going to have emotions. So maybe something to add to your day if you want, if this resonates. It's just somewhere in my day I'm just going to let myself feel what I feel. I'm going to let my body speak to me. I'm going to listen to it, ask it what it needs. This doesn't have to be a long exercise, it can be a couple of minutes. Just closing your eyes and let it feel what it feels. If you do that regularly, you'll feel more calm, without question, and your relationships will be more harmony-like, because there's not this buried voice trying to get out. So take that feeling of peace into your day.